In this video I'm going to have a look at the items I'm taking for an overnight trip which I'll be going on in a couple of days. As with the day pack video, my last video, the items shown are, if you like, typical. I'm not necessarily recommending the specific models. However, in this case, I do have some new or updated items which I'll mention, for which this will be their first outing, and both of which I expect to perform pretty well. Anyway, to get started, let's look at the pack. Now, the pack I'm taking is this one. It's the Gossamer Gear Mariposa 60. Now, this pack has been in Gossamer Gear's range for many years, but it's been extensively updated and improved. At least the changes look like improvements to me. I have used the pack in the past, and in fact I've got my old one here, which is 8 or 9 years old, I think. It's had an awful lot of use because I took it on a walk through the Alps, 500 miles on the GR5 from Lake Geneva through to the Mediterranean, and it's been on one or two ultimate challenges, various other walks as well. And I found it very comfortable, but not that durable. As you can see here, I've got a rather big hole in the front mesh. There's a couple of cuts in the base, I think where it's been put down on sharp rocks or sticks. The back, as you can see, is not as supportive as it was. The frame is still rigid, but the foam has collapsed a bit, and the bottom of the frame is starting to, you can feel it through the bottom here, and you can see, and the foam, which is soft, has started to wear in places as well. So it's been a great pack, but I felt could perhaps be a little more durable, though of course, you know, 500 miles does take its wear out of anything. And with the new pack, there's been a few other improvements as well as to the durability, but this is the new version. The basic design is the same, which I'll go into, but the soft corrugated foam pad here has now been changed for a much firmer foam, which I think should keep its shape better and also prove more durable. And also a minor thing, which doesn't matter, it's much easier to take it out and use it as a sit mat, because this at the bottom, the sleeve that holds it in at the bottom, is shallower than the one on the old pack. So I think that's a definite improvement. Also on the back, the position of the load lifter straps has been moved, so that they should prove actually effective. On these ones, they're barely any higher than the top of the shoulder straps, and they don't actually make a lot of difference to the carry. These ones, they've been moved up, and as you can see, there's now quite a gap between them and the top of the shoulder strap. I think that should be more effective for the carry. The way the frame, which is still the same internal wire frame, fits into the edge of the hip belt, should mean that the pack moves more easily with you as well. Now, the big change with the pack bag is the fabric. This is a recycled Robic nylon, which should prove much more durable than whatever it was on this one. I can't remember what the fabric was. Whether the mesh is any tougher, I don't know. I'll find out. Now, the basic design of the pack is, it has a flat pocket on the lid, but which holds quite a bit, and then a clip top underneath. It's 60 litre capacity. That includes all the pockets. this huge mesh pocket on the front, which is great for wet waterproofs or a wet tent, things that can drain and dry out through it and don't wet the inner contents. A big side pocket in which you can also put wet waterproofs or the tent. If it's stormy weather, with the old pack I often carried the shelter in here so I could pitch it without opening the pack at all. On the other side there are two pockets, a lower one and a top one, which hold quite a lot. There's also two hip belt pockets. Now for this trip I don't need the 60 litre capacity. I could easily get by with a 50 litre pack, but I do have this one to try. And anyway, I prefer a slightly bigger than necessary pack, because then it's easy to pack it, especially if you're packing up in rain or wind inside the tent perhaps, or when it's very midgy and you just want to get everything in the pack and get away as fast as possible. But overall I like the design of this. I like having all the pockets, which means you can always have everything you might need during the day easily accessible. So I'll be interested to see if this, proves basically more durable, perhaps more comfortable than the old one, though I didn't really have any complaints with the comfort until the back foam started to deform. Gossamer Gear also say that this fabric is more water resistant than the old one, which would be a good thing, because the water resistance of the old one was minimal, if even that. On the Alps walk, in the second half of the walk, started to get big thunderstorms and a lot of torrential rain, and the pack would not stand up to it at all. The rain just tended to go straight through after 10 or 15 minutes. So even though I had things inside the pack, inside stuff sacks and waterproof bags, I still ended up buying a pack cover to give a bit more protection. Hopefully that won't be necessary with this. Now, I say this is packed with just about everything I need for an overnight trip in the Scottish Highlands in July. Note that, this is what I'd carry probably from mid-June through to mid-September. After that, before and after that, I would probably take another item of warm clothing, perhaps gloves, probably a slightly warmer sleeping bag, start to add things in, heading towards or coming out of winter. But say mid-June to mid-September, I'm not expecting any really cold weather, so this is what I carry then. I'll show you what I've got in it. I'm not using at the moment, the hip belt pockets, though I might put my phone in one of them, and I'll probably put snack bars or sweets in the other. I'm not using this pocket either. I'll probably think of something to go in it, but at the moment I don't need it at all. This lower pocket has my very old Go Light 700ml plastic water bottle, which is very light and which must be at least 20 years old, I think. There'll be room for another bottle in there if I wanted. And in the top is simply this ultralight titanium Snow Peak version of the classic Sierra cup, which I like to have, can dip water out of a stream and drink it. So it's convenient for that. And it lives in there at the moment. Again, there's room for plenty more in there. In the front pocket, given that the first day I'm out, no rain is forecast, and I hope that's correct, but it is meant to be breezy higher up. So in here, I have my wind shirt, just in case I need it, and also a sun hat. Now, this is a new test item, which so far I've only worn it briefly for short walks, but I quite like, because it combines a hat with wide brim, which I like, with a neck flap to protect your neck, so the brim doesn't come out here and catch on the top of the pack, which can happen. But at the same time, as you can see, you've got good protection from sunshine. Not that I would need it now, it's slowly clouding over. And it's got neck cord so it doesn't blow off in the wind. And it folds nice and flat, so it's easy to pack away, but that's in there in case I need it. The top pocket has the various odds and ends that I might want. It's got sunscreen, dark glasses, the Garmin InReach. It's not a big top pocket because it's fairly flat, but that does make it easier to get items out than in a huge pocket where small ones sort of retreat to the back. And then opening up the pack, at the top I have a tent, and again this is a new improved item that's actually been around in its old form for ages, which is the MSR Hubba Hubba tent. The original version of this one was the NX, Hubba Hubba NX, and what the new versions, there'll be two, are going to do, it's same basic design, though slightly larger inside with better headroom, which MSR say, quite rightly, is for use with, you know, the modern thicker airbeds, which of course MSR make, or at least Cascade Designs, who own MSR, make under the Thermarest name. But it's certainly true that tents get smaller when you put in a thick pad inside them, as opposed to the older pads, which were never that thick. So they've improved the size inside for that. But the two versions, there's a lightweight version, and this, the LT, and this is the Hubba Hubba HD. It's the one-person tent. And the HD version has tougher materials. It's a higher hydrostatic head on the fly sheet and a much higher hydrostatic head on the ground sheet, which I think is the important factor, because a lot of US tents tend to be made on the assumption you're always camping on dry ground. So the water resistance of the ground sheet is not absolutely critical. Whereas, you know, in the Scottish Highlands, it's far more common to be camping on wet ground. And the toughness of the ground sheet and its hydrostatic head are really important. So instead of making one where they say you need to use a footprint with this if you're going to use it in wet or rough conditions, which means adding extra weight and cost, MSR have made a version that's got a tough ground sheet already, plus, as I say, a fly sheet with a bigger hydrostatic head. I very much think this is the version best suited to British, Scottish conditions. The LT version shaves off a bit of weight, but does not have the same durability of the fabrics, the same hydrostatic heads. So this is the one, I think, for the UK, and I'll be interested to see how I get on with it. I have practiced pitching it, of course. I never take out a tent without checking I can put it up and that there's nothing missing. But I haven't actually used it yet. I'm not expecting to notice much difference with the NX, which is a tent I've used a fair bit and do like, but we will see. Now, the poles are not in with the tent because it makes it very wide to fit in the pack, because that's the length of the poles. So I put them that way down the pack. Of course, they could go in the side pocket as well, and they will fit in the bag with the rest of the tent. It's just they make it longer. Then there's bag of food. I need to add a few things to this, which I'll buy on my way out. When I weighed the pack, it's just under 9 kilos. I expect by the time I've added a few extra items to the food bag, it'll weigh about 9 kilos, assuming I'm not wearing, of course, any of the clothes in it, because then the weight will go down. This is my ditty bag, which is where all the small items I don't want to lose and I don't need to have in pockets go, which is everything from, that's an e-reader for use in the tent if I get stuck inside due to midges or rain and start to feel bored. My ancient map of the area I'm going to, first aid kit, that's the midge specs, a small repair kit, and headlamp, other odds and ends, some of which I will definitely use, some of which, like the first aid kit, I hope never get opened, but I wouldn't go without. And then we get waterproof jacket and over trousers. As I say, this first day up, rain isn't forecast. I hope it's correct. So they're a fair way down in the pack. But if rain was forecast, they'd go in one of these pockets so I could get at them without opening the pack. And if I took them off after it being raining, they'd go in one of these two pockets so they didn't wet things in the pack. And then low down in the pack are two water bags. Each one is 2 litres, which is more than enough water for my overnight camp, but does mean I can carry water some distance if I don't find somewhere to camp that's very close to water, and also means I've got all the water I need for overnight. I don't have to get out of the tent to go and get more water if it's, again, midgy or raining. These stay in the pack at the moment. When I pack them away, because they'll probably be damp, they'll go in the pocket with the water bottle. Then there's my mini tripod, because I will be, I hope, making a couple of videos and perhaps doing some low light landscape shots. And then we get to cooking gear, and again, the time of year, I don't need an insulated mug. In fact, I don't want an insulated mug, because if I made a hot drink, I don't want to have to sit there waiting for it to cool down before I can drink anything. So I've gone back to, this is an old MSR, 600ml to the brim top, so effectively maximum 500ml if you don't want to spill things. I can use it to cook in, but mostly I just use it as a mug. I must have had this at least 20 years, I think. Much newer is the Jetboil Stash, with a canister inside in a cloth so that it doesn't scratch the pan, which is aluminium. And this is a very efficient pot, because it's got the heat exchanger on the base, and I brought the little lightweight Stash stove that goes with it. You can only buy the pot with the stove as a unit. Now, in mild conditions, this is an excellent stove. You get good fuel consumption, and it boils water fast, you know, in conjunction with the heat exchanger pot. It's not regulated though, which means that when it's cold or if the canister's almost empty, it slows down a bit. It's not so efficient. So again, this for me is a summer stove. It'll be the, you know, mid-June through to mid-September period when I'll take this out. But in summer conditions, it's great, and it is very, very light and quite compact. If I'm taking a 100 size canister, which I haven't got one at the moment with any gas in, then it will go into the pot with the canister, but it won't with a 200 size canister. And then there's the usual fire steel, spoons. Fire steel being, or a lighter being essential with this stove, because it also doesn't have a piezo igniter, which doesn't bother me in the slightest, because I've broken so many of them over the years. I'd always carry another means of lighting the stove anyway. That's my kitchen stuff. On one other item, which is a windscreen, because the stove is not wind resistant at all. It doesn't have a lip on the burner to give a slight protection against wind, and there's a fair gap between the burner and the bottom of the pot. But put this round 3 sides of it and it works fine. And then one warm garment, the same as I showed in the day pack thing, basically a lightweight synthetic top, which I'm more likely to wear on a camping trip than on a day walk, because, you know, early morning it can be quite cool. If I'm up late in the evening, if I'm outside taking photographs at dusk, it can be a bit cool. And then this is my sleeping bag, which, as you can see, is tiny. Again, this is very much, I think, a summer only one, but I used it last summer and it was very efficient. This is the Rab Mythic Ultra 120, and it weighs 300 and something grams. I'll put the weights of items on the screen. And it has a short zip. It's down-filled, and for much of the base, that section basically under your body and head, as you can see, there's no fill. It's just nylon, and there are 2 things to go, your mat to go in. I don't use them because I find it annoying trying to sit up in the sleeping bag and discover I'm trying to pull the mat up with me, and I don't find they're necessary. It's wide enough and I can spread it over myself enough to stay warm without having to have it fastened to the mat. But I think for summer use, this is a really, you know, excellent bag. And as you can see, it packs up incredibly small. And it comes with this waterproof dry bag. A waterproof dry bag that, for once, because it's not true with quite a lot of sleeping bags, is easily big enough, as you can see, for the bag, so you're not desperately trying to shove a sleeping bag into a slightly too small stuff sack that's been provided in order to show you how small it will go. Whereas this one, as you can see, you can get it in and you can roll it up a fair bit before doing the dry bag up. And then there is the mat, that I'm using with it. Of course, with a sleeping bag like this, where under the torso there's no insulation, you need to have a warm mat or you'll feel cold anyway. And this is one I've been using a lot the last year. It's the Big Agnes Zoom UL insulated. This time of year I probably don't need the insulated bit, but it's just over 400 grams, I think. And one thing I like about it is it's rectangular. It's not tapered, which means I've got more scope to move around on it without part of me coming off the edge. But as you can see, the sleeping bag is only a bit bigger than the mat, but I think the combination, I'm not expecting very cold night temperatures, of course, will be fine. And then the last two things inside that are my basic bivvy bag, Terra Nova Moonlight. I've had this for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. It gets used very occasionally. I think I've used it once in the last 3 years, and it comes on day walks as well as camping trips. It's a good backup just in case, and it is, again, very light and quite compact. And also the OMM Dura mat, which works as a sit mat, which, as I say, don't really need with this pack because it's got a sit mat in the back, but not all packs have that. Folds up fairly flat, but also it's useful in the tent if anything happens to this, and it hasn't happened to this one, but the number of deflations I've had through punctures with inflatable mats is, I think, quite amazing. I think overall it shows that they're not actually very durable, but I do like to have something else just in case that happens. Now, again, outside of summer, I want a thicker foam pad than this, but in summer, this will do. And as you can see, it's quite battered. I've had it a long time, and it just works as a little bit of extra padding in the pack. Anyway, that is what I'll be taking on this next trip, and in particular to see how I get on with the pack and the tent, and weather and midges permitting, I'll make a video or two during the trip. I'll certainly report back how everything did afterwards. And thank you. If you found this interesting, do please click the subscribe button. It all helps, enables me to go on making videos like this. Thank you.